Discover the incredible hidden talent that a humble waitress revealed, saving his life in 30 days. Jake paced the length of his sterile office, the heavy atmosphere pressing down on him like a fog. Drowning under the weight of expectations, he felt the walls closing in. In less than a month, he'd either secure that coveted partnership at the high-profile law firm or collapse into irrelevance. The chance was a noose tightening around his neck, and with each tick of the clock, suffocating anxiety surged within him. All he had once dreamed of seemed eclipsed by corporate jargon and moral ambiguity, a stark contrast to the promise he had shown in law school. His thoughts spiraled violently, two conflicting desires wrestling for dominance. The urge to rise, to make a name for himself, battled against the gnawing anxiety that whispered he was nothing more than a cog in a relentless machine. Would sacrificing his values for recognition ultimately be worth it? Even worse, if he didn't rise to the occasion, what would become of him? An overwhelming sense of disgrace loomed, thickening every breath he took. At lunch, Jake retreated to the local diner, armed only with the hope that the familiar hum of conversations might offer him solace. The smell of frying bacon filled his nostrils, a momentary distraction from his racing mind. And there was Sarah, the waitress who served him a cup of coffee with a warm smile, her laughter ringing like chimes through the haze of his despair. Despite the crushing weight of his reality, in those stolen moments, he felt lighter, if only temporarily. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each exchange, Sarah's candid stories about her life snared him, her struggles threading through her tales like dark, stirring ink on a canvas. Caring for her disabled mother, balancing two jobs, all while nurturing her little brother, every narrative bled authenticity. In those moments, Jake realized how far he drifted from his passions. The lawyer he was becoming felt foreign to him. The person he had been, the creative storyteller with dreams simmering beneath a rewarding facade, flickered just out of reach. But the pressure mounted. As Jake confronted a moral dilemma at work tied to a corporate cover-up, he felt the floor beneath him shifting. Could he betray his principles to secure that partnership? Night after night, he poured his heart into writing, pages filling with desperation and deeply slumbering hopes. The ink spoke of his turmoil, each word heavy with questioning, exposing a conflict that gnawed at his core, a true artist yearning for expression and snared in a corporate cage. And then came the moment when the world he had built protecting his ambition crumbled. Jake became the scapegoat. It felt like being thrust into a spotlight of disgrace that engulfed his self-worth. The weight of failure pressed ruthlessly against him, leaving him adrift in an ocean of uncertainty. But just as despair threatened to consume him, Sarah stepped in, revealing her own battles, inviting him to share in their intertwined heartbreak. As she captivated a small crowd with her spoken word poetry, Jake sat entranced by the rawness of her expressions. Each line broke open a door within him, igniting a spark that dared him to confront the silenced artist he had buried. But as shadows of doubt returned, he questioned. Could he find that inner courage to seize this chance for redemption, this opportunity to reclaim his identity? The question loomed, heavy and unanswered, leaving him teetering on the edge of a revelation that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself. Jake's nights blurred into one another, ink-stained pages merging under the light of his dim desk lamp. Each word he penned felt like a step closer to an unpredictable destination, a struggle to navigate the tumultuous waters of his heart and mind. Sarah's performance continued to echo in his thoughts, the relentless rhythm of her words sparking embers of a long-dormant creativity within him. This pulsing desire to write clashed against the heavy blanket of guilt from abandoning his once unwavering ambition. The following day, Jake returned to the diner with a flicker of determination ignited by Sarah's poems. He needed to rearm himself, a soldier preparing for a battle he had previously thought unwinnable. As he entered, the ding of the bell above the door broke the spell of his insecurities momentarily. Sarah caught his eye immediately, her laughter spilling like sunlight across the dreary backdrop of his routine. The weight on his shoulders lifted slightly, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of possibility. "Back for more coffee or a new perspective?" She smiled, a teasing spark in her eyes. "Can I get a little of both?" he replied, surprised at his own boldness. Their conversation flowed easily, words weaving between them like a dance. He shared snippets of his writing, vulnerable yet emboldened. She listened, her nods encouraging him to dig deeper. As the minutes turned into hours, Jake started feeling the contours of his identity shifting. He was more than just a rising junior partner. He was a storyteller, a creator who could harness fear and transform it into art. But reality pressed in around the edges, leaving him wondering how long this clarity might last. Would the firm welcome a different kind of Jake, one who wore his heart on his sleeve and dared to speak truths? Or would they cast him aside like so many failed ventures in the competitive landscape he traversed daily? The looming partnership review. Date buzzed angrily in his mind, a relentless reminder of the stakes. He grappled with the idea of how to present himself without losing the fragile threads of his new resolve. Trapped between who he believed he needed to be at work and who he wanted to become, anxiety clawed at him once more. Late that night, Jake picked up his pen with renewed fervor. He wrote about conflict, about the struggle to choose art over ambition. Words flowed freely, unfettered by the suffocating corporate persona that had so strongly defined him until now. He felt alive, vibrating with the rhythm of his self-discovery. In the murky haze of doubt, two hands clutched his heart, the exhilaration of creativity and an underlying fear of failure. The moment of truth was fast approaching at his firm. The stakes had never been higher, but neither had the tension in his soul. Jake needed to decide what path to take, and he felt electrified by the impending moment. Would he step into the boardroom as the sycophant they expected, or as the artist he was daring to become? The choice now felt monumental, a crossroads that would shape the narrative of his life. As he pondered his next move, a message pinged on his phone. Sarah invited him to an open mic night at the diner. Encouragement radiated from her words, and instinctively he felt a spark of excitement and dread combined. Could this be a compelling opportunity for him to share his voice publicly for the first time? The tension simmered as he weighed this newfound chance against the corporate ambitions that held him captive. The time had come to face not only the audience at the diner, but also the most daunting voice of all, his own. Jake stared at the screen, the luminescent glow forcing him to confront the juxtaposition of Sarah's words against his professionally crafted persona. Open mic night. He could almost hear the clinking of coffee cups and the murmurs of the audience, hungry for authenticity. But would they find it in him? Would he even find it in himself? As the hours ticked away, anxiety slithered through his mind, wrapping tighter with every passing moment. The thought of joining Sarah on that small stage, revealing the insecurities and aspirations he had kept buried, terrified him. If only he could meld the brave artist with the hardened businessman, perhaps he could emerge whole on the other side. Afraid to let his thoughts spiral, Jake shifted his focus. His corporate responsibilities loomed large, the review date a dark cloud hanging precariously over his head. The notion of presenting to the partners as an exciting new version of himself felt equally thrilling and reckless. What if they didn't accept him? What if they saw the vulnerability he was finally allowing himself to embrace as a weakness, a betrayal of the unwavering professionalism that had brought him this far? He picked up his pen, sketching phrases onto the page, akin to the way a chef carefully balances flavors. Each word shaped his internal conflict, solidifying what he yearned for, a seamless fusion of creativity and ambition. A story that spoke of struggle and triumph, where failure didn't mark the end, but rather served as a catalyst for growth. Could he flick the narrative and show his firm a side of himself they hadn't seen? A ding from his phone brought his focus back. The night of the open mic approached rapidly. Sarah had written to remind him again, a beacon of encouragement in his scattered thoughts. Wouldn't a part of the audience resonate with his journey? Wouldn't the act of sharing empower him to confront both his past and potential future? The dinner plates at the diner rattled as if the universe itself were urging him to embrace this opportunity. He envisioned standing in front of the crowd, bearing his truth, his fears morphing into a source of strength. Maybe the act of putting words to his thoughts in public would give him the solid ground he craved. Deciding to practice, he began to speak the words aloud, each sentence unveiling layers of his vulnerability, his internal battles with ambition and creativity. He stumbled through drafts, the sound of his own voice serving as both encouragement and critique. The clock inched closer to the time for him to leave for the diner. Every beat of his heart echoed the question of choice. Was he ready to stand on that stage, fronted by an audience expecting greatness from someone who felt so inadequately equipped? As uncertainty pricked at him, he could feel the urgency rising, both in the opportunity at hand and the impending review at the firm. With a deep breath, he stared into the bathroom mirror, signaling to the reflection that it was time for a transformation. A hybrid persona that combined both the meticulous attorney and the impassioned artist. A hybrid that could redefine not just how others perceived him, but also how he viewed himself. The reality settled heavily. Jake needed to confront the entrenched expectations of his firm, while also delivering his voice free of chains. Would his layers blend seamlessly, or would he fracture under the pressure? As he stepped out of the apartment, determination solidified within him. Tonight could alter his course forever. An act of rebellion against the confines of his past, or a timid retreat into conformity. With every step towards the diner, he felt the electric waves of possibilities surging toward him, propelling him into the unknown. He was ready, or at least he hoped to be. Now, standing at the cafe door, he took a moment to inhale the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the warmth of homey chatter. The stage was set. All he needed was the courage to take that first step. But as Jake crossed the threshold, another thought emerged in his mind. What awaited him beyond the words he hoped to share? Would his storytelling truly weave the professional and personal into one coherent tapestry, or would fragments of each remain elusive? He entered, feeling that this might only be the beginning. The dim light inside the cafe tugged at Jake's senses, grounding him in the present moment, yet simultaneously amplifying his inner whirlpool of doubts. He could see the scattered tables filled with an eclectic crowd, students working on laptops, couples sharing quiet conversations, and a group of artists already laughing boisterously. Each laugh ignited a flicker of nervous energy within him. Was he even cut out for this world of vulnerability, poised to reveal the depths of his soul to strangers? As he stepped further inside, he caught a glimpse of Sarah across the room. She leaned against the small stage, chatting animatedly with an older gentleman, her expressive gestures showcasing an ease he envied. Her warmth seemed to draw people in, and Jake felt his heart race faster at the thought of joining her. But what if he became just another face in the crowd? Would his words ignite the same spark she effortlessly created? His feet seemed glued to the floor as he wrestled with the notion of taking a seat and disappearing among the onlookers instead. Clenching his fists, Jake recalled the layered narratives he had formed in his mind, all waiting to be unleashed. If he allowed fear to dictate his decisions, he would remain trapped in an emotional prison he'd built over years of carefully crafted professionalism. Gathering his resolve, he approached Sarah, who brightened at his arrival. "Jake, you made it!" she exclaimed, her voice a comforting balm that soothed his frayed nerves. "I was starting to think the corporate world had swallowed you whole." Not yet, he replied, trying to force a chuckle even as his insides roiled. They slid into conversation like old friends, her easygoing demeanor pulling him closer to a sense of comfort. "Are you ready for tonight?" she asked, the questions wrapped in gentle encouragement that felt almost like an invitation to shed his fears, if only for a moment. "I think so," he said, more to his own ears than hers. But what did ready truly mean? It was an abstract concept, one he equated with confidence. Doubt cast a long shadow over the clarity of that singular word. Just then, the host emerged, drawing the cafe's attention. A surge of adrenaline shot through Jake, his heart thumping wildly as they began to introduce the night's first performer. This was it. This was the irreplaceable moment that could shift his narrative, the crossroad where worry met courage. First up, we have a special surprise, a returning veteran of our open mic nights. "Please give a warm welcome to Sarah," the host announced, and the audience applauded enthusiastically. Jake's stomach twisted as Sarah took the stage, the dim light catching her in a halo that made her glow impassioned. A part of him wanted to drown in her star quality, drawn to the way she commanded the room. But another part screamed for him to join her, to step out of the shadows and showcase his voice along hers, no matter how unsure he felt. As she began her piece, a spoken-word monologue filled with a blend of wit and unguarded emotion, Jake found himself rapt. Each verse resonated deeply with his own internal struggles. Her fears and doubts echoed his own, played out like a soundtrack to his life. Here was the rare window into authenticity for which he had yearned. The audience responded, laughter interspersed with moments of reflection, the ebb and flow of their connection palpable. Inspiration prickled at his skin, igniting something dormant within him. Perhaps if he shared his story instead of just his polished persona, the outcome could be liberating. With every heartbeat, he felt the urgency mounting. As Sarah concluded with a flourish, the crowd erupted into applause, and she stepped down from the stage, her eyes sparkling with an infectious thrill. "Your turn's coming up, right?" she prodded, her enthusiasm unabated. Jake swallowed hard, a mix of fear and anticipation swirling violently in his gut. "Maybe," he muttered, but the words felt hollow. Would he follow through, or would he retreat into the confines of his corporate self, the time ticking away inexorably? The world around him blurred, the applause fading into a soft hum, his thoughts racing. A basic question burned brightly. What would he choose to share? And in that chaos, Jake realized that his true challenge lay not only in stepping onto the stage, but in daring to confront the profound truths hidden in the shadows of his experiences. The stage was not just an outlet, it held the possibility of revelation. But would he grab hold of that possibility or allow the shadows to continue dictating his fate? As the host announced the next performer, Jake felt the weight of expectation and excitement collide within him. And then, just as he stood at the precipice of long-awaited action, an explosion of anxiety submersed him. This was no longer just about voice or presence, but a deeper confrontation with the core of who he had been versus who he longed to become. Where would his journey truly lead him, and what unexpected truths could he unearth? The applause dimmed, but Jake felt his echo reverberating in his chest. Standing there, surrounded by palpable energy, he was grappling not just with fear, but with an awakening awareness of his own desires. The spotlight that had illuminated Sarah now danced in his mind, calling him forward while simultaneously threatening to swallow him whole. He was a professional, a man molded to fit the contours of a stable, predictable life, and yet the child within him yearned to break free. What if he could transform the stories swirling in his mind into something more than just thoughts? The path ahead divided sharply between retreat and revelation. "Come on, Jake," he whispered, almost pleading with himself. "What's stopping you?" The crowd continued to buzz with excitement. He could feel their anticipation, a low hum vibrating through the cafe. Glancing back at Sarah, who was now basking in the afterglow of her performance, he noted her relaxed posture, her defeated yet victorious expression. She had confronted her fears and emerged, beautiful and raw. Wasn't that the essence of storytelling? To lay oneself bare for the world to see, to weave personal truths into a tapestry that could inspire and connect. The truth, nestled deep within him, fought to find light. His journey in the corporate world had established a veneer of success, yet within the confines of that polished persona, he had become a ghost to his own aspirations. Behind the tailored suits and stern meetings lay dreams drowned in conformity, an echo of missed opportunities masquerading as rational choices. The realization was abrasive, escalating his inner turmoil. Now, let's welcome Jake to the stage. The host's voice pulled him toward reality, and the crowd's applause intensified, merging his quest for authenticity with the external recognition he had long avoided. Jake's heart raced as if it were a drum marking a countdown to his inaugural step into vulnerability. Instinctively, he froze, an urge to retreat clawing at his throat. The safety of anonymity beckoned like a siren, promising normalcy over the tempest that awaited him. However, the gaze of Sarah bore down on him. The encouragement of her eyes ignited a flicker of bravery that pushed against his hesitation. He took a slow, deep breath, steadying himself. The moment stretched indefinitely, an eternity suspended in the air. The doubts that had become his companions began to bubble to the surface. The fear of failure, the chaos of unfamiliarity, the risk of exposure. Yet with each pulse of adrenaline surged acknowledgement of an underlying truth. This was not about validation, but self-exploration. It was about digging through the layers to discover the man hidden beneath the expectations. Jake made a choice. With deliberate steps, he crossed towards the stage, pushing past the tightening constriction of anxiety. Each footfall thudded against the wooden floorboards, grounding him in something tangible. There was power in each step. It was a reclamation of his story. "Hi, everyone," he managed, his voice raw but steady. The crowd quieted, their eyes focused solely on him. Here, under the dim lights, he realized that he had their attention, not as a corporate entity, but as Jake, the man willing to share his truth. "I've spent years wrapped in a cocoon of propriety, hidden behind layers of what I thought I should be." The words spilled from him, unfiltered, raw. "And all the while I have chased a feeling I thought I would one day find in accolades, in promotions, in being someone I thought the world wanted me to be." With every heartbeat, Jake connected with the crowd, the suffocating weight of fear dissipating into the certainty of empathy. "What I've come to discover is that authenticity doesn't come from the things we acquire, but from the moments we dare to be seen. Moments that let us step into the light, even if our edges are jagged." He paused, feeling the connection solidify like an anchor, grounding him amid a tumultuous sea. He spoke of his struggle to reconcile his emotions, the yearning for genuine connections, and the numbing comfort of solitude he had embraced for too long. As he painted his story, one emotion bled into another, a narrative pieced together with honesty. As he approached his conclusion, a surge of exhilaration washed over him. In that moment of sharing, not only did he relinquish fear, but he unearthed a piece of himself that had been dormant. The audience erupted into applause, but it was the breath of ease that swept through him that held the most significance. He had faced a sliver of his truth, and in doing so had awakened a voice within himself that had long been silent. But as he stepped down, a lingering question tugged at him like an unfinished tale. What other hidden depths lay beneath the surface of his experiences, waiting to be unearthed? The journey had only just begun, and the whispers of unaddressed fears purled around him tantalizingly. What revelations awaited him next? As Jake stepped off the stage, the pulsating energy of the room still thrummed in his veins. Each clap, every cheer, resonated not just with recognition, but with an exhilarating sense of purpose. The applause faded, but the echoes of his own voice remained, carving pathways through the tangled thickets of his thoughts. He had shared more than just words. He had revealed parts of himself he thought were buried under the weight of expectations and conformity. Yet, as the initial thrill of the performance dulled, uncertainty gripped him once more. What did it mean to be authentic? How could he maintain this newfound sense of freedom when faced with the ceaseless demands of his corporate life? Was he brave enough to confront this wild, untamed version of himself he had just glimpsed? Lost in contemplation, he noticed Sarah sitting back in her chair, her eyes bright, an unassuming smile edging across her lips. She had stepped confidently into the limelight, and he wondered if she too felt this sense of awakening, or if she was more at ease with her path. There was something magnetic about her ease, a grace that propelled her forward, unhindered by the need for approval. "Hey, Jake, you were incredible," she said as he approached. "Thank you. Seriously, it felt freeing," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "You know, stepping out like that isn't just about the moment. It's an invitation for more," she encouraged, leaning in. "What are you going to do with it?" Her words struck deep. What indeed? This was not merely a performance in a cafe. It was a rendezvous with destiny that hinted at countless possibilities. As he left the stage behind him, it dawned on him that he had chosen to face a truth that could redefine his existence, not just as a storyteller, but as a human being. Jake took a long gaze around the room, absorbing the ambiance, a mix of hopeful faces and passionate souls. Maybe he didn't need to compartmentalize his life anymore. Perhaps he could embrace all facets of himself, including those discarded dreams once deemed impractical. Ideas he once shelved crowded his thoughts, fighting for attention. Writing, acting, art. There was a universe burdened within him, yearning for expression. "Why do you seem so lost?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie. She possessed an uncanny ability to draw out feelings lurking just beneath the surface. I don't know where to start," he murmured, the weight of possibilities suddenly enormous. "Start with spreading your wings. Explore different avenues. Ask yourself what scares you the most," she suggested while drumming her fingers on the table. "Make a list. What do you love? What do you want to explore? Sometimes that's the first step." Jake's heart raced again, this time from anticipation rather than fear. What if he could take real, tangible steps towards pursuing those scattered fragments of creativity? How could he shape those secrets, long entombed within himself, into something solid? Inspiration surged within him as he imagined sketching characters and narratives that mirrored his experience. Perhaps they would be flawed, raw, incomplete, but undeniably real, just like him. These thoughts enveloped him, growing clarity amid chaos. He would write. No, he had to write. "Let's meet up again, maybe for a workshop. We could try improvisation or writing together," Sarah offered, bright-eyed and enthusiastic. "I think you'd love it." "Yeah," he nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and caution. "I'd like that." As they chatted, the fabric of his evolving identity began stitching itself together. He envisioned gatherings filled with laughter, characters spun from his imagination intermingling with his reality, friendships growing around shared vulnerabilities. But as the night drew to a close, a shiver of doubt crept in. What if he failed? What if revealing himself led to rejection rather than acceptance? The stakes felt higher now, and he could almost feel the shadows of self-doubt hovering nearby. Yet, amidst the uncertainty lingered a spark of determination. The more he pushed against that stifling cocoon, the more he sensed liberation. There was no going back, only forward. He would embrace both the thrill and the fear, unearthing buried potential with every step into the unknown. As he departed, a knot of anticipation wrapped around his thoughts. What awaited him on this new path? What would unfold from the willingness to embrace the uncomfortable? The clock was ticking, and the journey beckoned. Darkness lay behind him, but the light ahead was blindingly bright. The question lingered in his mind. Was he ready to confront the next challenge, the one that would test the very core of his newfound identity? Jake sat at his small kitchen table, flicking through a notebook filled with hastily scrawled ideas and fragmentary dialogues. Each line conjured the thrill he had tasted on stage, a taste he now craved even more. He'd never realized how cathartic writing could be, how transformative it felt to narrate emotions long buried beneath his corporate facade. Absorbing the tender glow of a single lamp, he felt set adrift between two worlds. One, a comfortable routine and expectation, and the other a chaotic melange of possibilities. But an unsettling pressure built within him, the kind typified by moments when the weight of ambition eclipses the small flames of self-doubt. Was this pursuit genuine or merely a frenzy fueled by the applause, an ephemeral high that would dissipate in the harsh light of reality? Questions spiraled through his mind, fraying his focus and urging him to abandon his newly pristine aspirations. The idea of attending Sarah's workshop loomed over him like a lighthouse guiding a ship from turbulent waters. But what if he couldn't hold his ground when faced with the collective creativity of others? What if he was merely an imposter masquerading as an artist? The prospect felt daunting, but Sarah's confidence echoed in his mind, coaxing him to explore the territory that remained hidden from view. He decided to take a leap, small steps toward crafting a new narrative for himself. Jake pushed aside his uncertainties and opened the blank page, pencil poised. The first word didn't feel like unfolding genius, but a mere tremor of fear and hesitation. After several minutes of internal struggle, he began writing about what he knew best, himself. He scribbled fragments of his past, memories entwined with uncertainty and discovery. Each stroke felt uncomfortable yet exhilarating, a hard-earned liberation from the carefully articulated scripts of his corporate life. This act, simple yet substantial, was the herald of the authenticity he sought. He paused, suddenly aware of a stirring ambition. What if he could share his voice with others beyond just Sarah's workshop? The thought electrified him, igniting an urge to reach wider audiences. Though anxiety rattled beneath his exterior, the vision of his words on a page filled him with purpose. As days passed, Jake embraced the roaring engine of creativity. A week later, with a fresh draft and palpable uncertainty, he decided to share excerpts with Sarah. Words tumbled from his pen with newfound fluidity, each character shaped from marrow-deep vulnerability. Calling Sarah felt like stepping off another stage, but this time without the cheers to cushion him. He stammered through the phone, heart racing. "That's amazing! Share it with me over coffee," she responded eagerly. Her enthusiasm was a balm soothing his frayed nerves. The cafe buzzed with life, yet Jake felt insulated, encased in his thoughts until Sarah arrived. Her warm expression invited him into their shared bubble of creativity. As he read aloud, emotion spilled forth alongside his words, exposing fears and hopes he had not articulated before. Sarah listened intently, her eyes bright with understanding. Enthralled by his storytelling, she responded with questions that dug deeper, unearthing emotions he hadn't even acknowledged within himself. The lines began to blur between performance and authenticity, and he realized this was not merely about sharing his words, but revealing his self. Each passage invited vulnerability, an admission of flaws layered beneath the narrative arc. It was here that he discovered a hidden talent, the ability to craft emotion through the lens of honesty. After the cafe meeting, Jake felt invigorated enough to plan his next steps consciously. But a nagging question lingered. Was he truly ready for the critiques that awaited? Each acceptance of his artistic journey felt precipitated by a fear-stricken surrender. The prospect of sharing his work with strangers haunted him. Jake envisioned not just applause, but also scrutiny, the unforgiving gaze of an audience weighing his worth against the fearless performances he had admired. Regardless, light surged through his doubt. He recognized he must confront this looming challenge, an invitation to step outside confines he had once deemed unbreakable. He wasn't just crafting stories anymore. He was shaping his identity, cementing a foundation for something greater than himself. Yet, the eerie whisper of self-doubt remained, beckoning him to retreat and conceal his voice once more. Before he knew it, the date for the workshop had arrived. Would he still feel brave among countless artists, each dazzling in their fervor? The time had come for Jake to face this existential confrontation, the truth behind his artistic vulnerability. Could he truly embrace this new unknown? As Jake arrived at the workshop, the weight of possibility pressed heavily against his chest. The rehearsal of self-assurance unspooled quickly. He could feel the vibrations of excitement and anxiety in the air. Each step took him deeper into a world that oscillated between terrifying and exhilarating. A small part of him longed for the predictable mundanity of his corporate desk, while another leaped toward the uncertainty unfurling before him. Inside the brightly lit studio, laughter and chatter reverberated. Artists exchanged ideas with the enthusiasm of explorers charting uncharted territories. Jake hovered at the entrance, his heart racing, plotting his retreat, conjuring images of the safe cocoon of his life. But the memory of Sarah's encouraging smile anchored him in place. It reminded him why he had come, shoving back the voice that urged him to withdraw. He took a deep breath and pushed forward, scanning the room for familiar faces. He found Sarah, lively in conversation with others. She spotted him and waved enthusiastically, her expression grounding him amidst the chaos. As the workshop convened, vulnerability became the central theme. The instructor, a seasoned artist named Malik, inspired a surge of bravery in the group. Art, he proclaimed, is the courage to expose raw, unfiltered truths. Each participant shared personal stories behind their work, unveiling layers of experience that resonated through shared laughter and silent tears. Jake's heart raced as he realized that everyone here wrestled with their uncertainties, painting invisible scars through the weight of their words. In that moment, the fabric of his existing narrative began unraveling. He was no longer an imposter drifting in a sea of creativity. He belonged to a community of seekers, the hesitant, the courageous, the misunderstood. As he listened to others speak, he felt an urge building within him, a craving to unearth his own story. Yet, self-doubt whispered fiercely, warning him of failure if he dared to share. During a break, with Sarah by his side, he watched the waitress in the cafe flawlessly serve the round of coffees with a quiet grace that exuded unpretentious confidence. Her presence, coupled with the conversations around him, sparked something in Jake. Slowly, he began to connect the dots between the honesty of their storytelling and the power he could harness by opening up himself. "Jake, you ready?" Sarah asked, nudging him gently. She had sensed his internal struggle. The gleaming opportunity to speak was now or never. He shook his head, doubt colliding with the thin thread of determination that had woven itself into his being. What if they hate it? What if I sound foolish? Everyone here wants to feel connected. Share your truth and you'll find your voice. As they resumed the circle, Malik encouraged those paralyzed by fear to take the plunge. Art is observed through the lens of authenticity. Performers, writers, artists, redemption lies in the act of sharing. With those words reverberating in his mind and Sarah's steadfast gaze upon him, he felt the gravitational pull of a greater force. The raw energy of expression engulfed him. Heart pounding, he found himself rising from his chair. Hesitation melted into resolve. "Actually," he said, his voice quaking, "I'd like to share something." The room turned silent, eyes affixed on him like moths to flame. As Jake began weaving his narrative, fragments of himself intertwined with the courage observed in the waitress and the others, he realized that the act of vulnerability transformed their collective breaths into a profound symphony of acceptance. The rush of rawness replaced his earlier trepidation. He discovered strength not just in storytelling, but in facing the visceral feelings underlying his narratives. As he spoke, he saw the faces in the circle shift, nods of recognition emerging as his words ignited a shared humanity. It was during this swirling moment of connection that he grasped a significant truth. A humble waitress had awakened a part of him that had languished beneath expectation. A voice capable of capturing more than applause, something compelling enough to nourish his spirits bravely through each ensuing day. But just as the wave of warmth enveloped him, unexpected hesitation crept in. Jake couldn't shake off the reactions of the audience as they absorbed his essence, for their approval now felt paramount. The moment thrummed taut with anticipation, pushing him yet again to edge closer into vulnerability. Deep within, a new voice began to stir. What if authenticity laid bare was not the end, but merely an invitation? Would he gather enough courage to step beyond these walls again, to let the world embrace the unadulterated aspects of himself? The question echoed with weight as the meeting came to its close, each pulse driving home a potent truth. Jake left the studio, heart thrumming like a drum. The journey wasn't merely about the artistry, it had become a path toward real transformation. Behind him lay the light of acceptance, but before him flickered the foreboding vastness of unveiling all he truly was. As he stepped out into the afternoon sun, a tingle of new purpose sparked. Within him, yet a shadow of uncertainty remained. The shadows of retreat beckoned, the air thick with the need for what came next. Would his newfound understanding of vulnerability extend beyond this space, beyond this moment? What awaited Jake in the greater realm of embracing authenticity? He sensed the adventure unfolding swiftly, even as a nagging thought hummed in the background. Could he dare to stand bare before the chaotic world again? In the days that followed the workshop, Jake felt the lingering hum of the revelations he had unearthed. The taste of vulnerability and connection lingered like a bittersweet aftertaste. He dove back into his everyday life, but everything felt slightly altered. The routine meetings and spreadsheet analyses that once felt suffocating now translated into a backdrop for deeper introspection. His corporate desk remained nothing more than a facade behind which his authentic self lay dormant. The hours spent at the office dragged like molasses. He often found himself staring blankly at the screen, haunted by echoes of his earlier courage. A conflict brewed within him, fueled by an insatiable desire to pursue that spark ignited during the workshop. Yet, the fear of slipping back into a mundane existence loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. One evening, in a moment of spontaneity, he decided to visit the cafe where the waitress had mesmerized him. He recalled her quiet confidence and the way she moved through her tasks with grace. It served as a reminder of the kind of self-assuredness he wished to embody. As he entered, he scanned the room until he spotted her, serving customers with an effortless smile. Gathering his thoughts, Jake approached her. "Hi there," he stammered, a lump of uncertainty tightening in his throat. "I just wanted to say that your presence here inspired me the other day." The words tumbled out, raw and unrefined. She looked up, slightly surprised, then smiled warmly. "Thank you. People often overlook the little things. What brings you here?" Jake hesitated, unsure how to articulate the shift within him, or even whether he should try. "I'm just trying to find my voice." He chuckled awkwardly, knowing how cliché it sounded, yet feeling it to be extraordinarily true. "Finding your voice is a journey, not a destination," she replied, leaning against the counter with an encouraging spark in her eyes. And in that moment, something shifted inside Jake. She had no pretense, just a bold acceptance of her role as herself. He realized how much his own discomfort with authenticity had held him back. There was clarity in their exchange, a tangible connection birthed from honesty, both finding depth in each other's presence despite their vastly different realms. Determined to break free from the corporate shackles, Jake embarked on evenings filled with workshops and art classes, seeking growth in places he had once dismissed. Each session became an exercise in vulnerability, a muster of courage to share not only his words, but his entire essence. He soon began to visualize a collection of his experiences, not as an artist on a pedestal, but as a storyteller with tales that revealed adversity and human spirit. However, the journey wasn't without its trials. One night, he stood before a small group at a local open mic, clutching his notes as a familiar trepidation washed over him. Panic tightened his chest, his once-believed confidence wobbling precariously on the edge. What if they don't get it? He questioned internally, recalling his past fears of criticism and inadequacy. But the waitress's voice echoed in his mind, nudging him forward. It's about sharing, not pleasing. With that, he stepped into the spotlight, words spilling raw and unguarded, revealing the intricacies of his struggles and triumphs. The audience was captivated, reflecting the same warmth that had enveloped him back in the workshop. Recognition, acceptance, purpose, each piece clicked into place. Yet, the lingering shadow of despair still crept at the edges of his joy. What if his voice faltered? Could he face the risk of rejection that lurked around every corner? The more he shared, the more he realized how much he stood to gain. But he was straddling two paths, the safe return to anonymity or the unpredictable road of authenticity. As applause reverberated through the small venue, Jake couldn't shake the heavy anticipation for what came next. How would he sustain this newfound journey? What consequences awaited him as he moved further from the corporate safety net and into the unknown expanse of creativity? While the applause faded, a fundamental question lingered. Could he balance the fervor of personal truth against the lingering need for acceptance in a world often more judgmental than forgiving? The streets outside beckoned, yet the shadows of his past loomed just as closely. Jake felt the tension rise, uncertain yet yearning for the answers that awaited him beyond the stage. Jake had unwittingly embarked on a remarkable journey of self-discovery over the past few weeks. Each experience was a step away from the corporate identity that had stifled him, ushering him into an authentic representation of who he truly was. As he settled into his living room, he reflected on how far he had come from the suffocating corporate walls that had once defined his worth. He had faced his fears, shared his stories, and ultimately embraced an artist within that he had long neglected. Tonight, that growth was poised to culminate in a defining moment, his first solo performance at a well-known local venue. It wasn't just about showcasing his talent anymore. It was about proving to himself that he had conquered the demons that had waged war in his mind for far too long. As he stood before the mirror, he felt a newfound confidence radiate from his core. Stepping into the spotlight would further affirm his commitment to authenticity. At the cafe, a familiar hum buzzed with energy. Sarah was there, her presence like a talisman reminding him of the journey they had both embarked on. She offered a reassuring smile as he approached, her excitement palpable as she prepared to offer support. "I'm nervous, but I feel ready," he admitted, framing his fidgeting hands. "Exactly. You're not just a performer, you're a storyteller. Just share your truth. That's all that matters," she encouraged, her voice cementing the belief he had cultivated through her unwavering friendship and inspiration. The two of them mingled among friends, and their rapport was effortless, a testament to the transformation Jake had undergone, now fully embracing the connections he had once feared would expose him. As the time drew near, Jake's name was called, and the audience applauded. Each clap felt like an affirmation, dispelling the vestiges of self-doubt that clung stubbornly to him. With a steadying breath, he embraced the stage, the warm glow of lights illuminating the space that felt both daunting and liberating. "Hi everyone, so glad to be here," he greeted, fortifying a newfound sense of belonging, not as an attorney haunted by ambition, but as an artist ready to share the raw weave of his heart. The sounds of laughter and cheers filled the air, and in that moment, he felt like he was home. His words flowed with honesty and candor. He spoke about the challenges he had faced, the suffocating expectations, and the intoxicating joy that accompanied each moment of vulnerability. The audience was enraptured, laughing and reflecting in equal measure. Every story was a brushstroke painting the depths of his soul, and he could feel the barriers that had divided him from his own truth crumbling away piece by piece. As he approached his concluding words, Jake felt a swell of fulfillment, an emotional crescendo building within him. He had conquered the fear of ridicule. He had unleashed the creative spirit that had long been buried under the weight of conformity. I've learned that true success isn't found in accolades or partnerships. It lies in the moments of authenticity we allow ourselves to embrace, he declared, his voice unwavering. The crowd erupted in applause, but it was the resounding echo of his own heart beating with relevance and purpose that made him feel invincible. As he stepped off the stage, sensations of warmth and applause enveloped him, but even more exciting was the validation that pulsed through his veins. He had not just performed, he had transformed, a stark contrast to the hesitant man he had once been. The depth of connection forged with the audience propelled him forward into the promise of new beginnings. The night was vibrant with energy and recognition, and the future seemed bright with potential. Jake's journey was by no means complete, but for the first time, he felt entirely comfortable navigating the possibilities ahead. Stripping away his corporate shell revealed layers of creativity and partnership with others, sparking collaborations and cultivating relationships that celebrated his artistic journey. "What's next for you?" Sarah asked, her eyes shimmering with pride. "I think I want to keep writing, performing, exploring all the avenues that challenge and inspire me," he responded with determined conviction. "Let's take the world by storm then. We'll write and create together," she beamed. This conversation filled him with delight. The thought of stepping deeper into a life unfettered from limitations energized Jake in a way that success at his firm never had. He envisioned a future where creativity thrived alongside ambition, where stories were woven from authenticity rather than hidden behind corporate ambitions. Within a few short weeks, Jake had achieved what he never thought possible: genuine mastery over his narrative, blending the lawyer and the artist into a flourishing tapestry of self-expression. He had conquered trepidation, embraced connection, and transformed a past overshadowed by fear into a present colored with courage and discovery. As he glanced back at the cafe, it dawned on him that each stolen moment he had shared with Sarah, every solitary writing session, had prepared him for the resonating truth he now carried. Greatness isn't rooted solely in one's profession. It blossoms into life when we dare to pursue, cultivate, and embrace our deepest selves. Now was the moment to act on that revelation, to redefine success and explore the depths of authenticity relentlessly. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.